newsmaker interviews and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Dominic Frisby, and with me tonight reviewing tomorrow's papers, we have the mighty Miriam Elia and the meaty Leo Kearse. But before we let them utter their truths, we go to the news, which tonight is read to you by Polly Middlehurst.
Thanks. And the headlines. Russia's defence ministry has agreed to open a humanitarian corridor to evacuate civilians from the besieged southern city of Mariupol in Ukraine tomorrow. Officials say Russian forces are withdrawing, though, from Chernobyl and Kiev and heading north to the Belarusian border. But NATO's Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg says troops are in fact regrouping and further attacks are to be expected. Tens of thousands of people in Ukraine have been cut off, meanwhile, from their gas supply after a Russian missile hit a pipe in the country's second largest city, Kharkiv. The pipes, which supply gas to an apartment block and nearby areas, caused a massive fire that burnt down dozens of local shops. Local emergency services say some 34,000 people have been left without gas. Meanwhile, Germany's Vice-Chancellor has activated national emergency plans in case Russia halts its gas supply to Europe. That comes after the Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree to stop its supply of gas from tomorrow unless contracts are paid in rubles. Germany and France have both described the move as blackmail. Here, Downing Street says it's monitoring the situation, but highlighted that the UK is much less reliant on Russia for its gas than its European counterparts. And here, the MP for Rotherham has accused South Yorkshire Police of institutional failures over their handling of the Rotherham child sex abuse scandal. That comes after the last of 47 police officers who were investigated over their handling of complaints has been cleared of misconduct. At least 1,400 children in Rotherham had been subjected to child sex abuse by gangs over a 16-year period. The MP, Sarah Champion, said it can't be right that no officers have faced consequences. Millions of workers will receive a pay rise from tomorrow as the national living wage increases. The government says around 2.5 million people will benefit from the largest ever increase, giving full-time workers £1,000 a year more. Ministers say it'll mostly benefit people who work in sectors like retail, hospitality, cleaning, and with adults' pay packets set to go up 6.6% to £9.50 an hour. And for the stamp collectors, time is of the essence. The Royal Mail is replacing stamps with barcodes. The postal group is phasing out its traditional first and second class stamps and moving instead to barcoded labels. It's all part of a modernisation drive, said to add security features and new services, allowing customers to share videos via the Royal Mail app. Normal stamps will be valid until February next year, after which point they can be swapped for the new equivalent. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you're with GB News. Now more from Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. Thank you very much, Polly. And this is the show that has comedians review tomorrow's papers so you don't have to bother reading them. With me on the show tonight, we have Leo Kearse, who only yesterday was singing songs of great comic genius on stage with me at the Backyard Comedy Club. And we have Miriam Elia, who was watching. And what did you think of the show, Miriam?
It's really problematic. That was great. I had a laugh.
Did you see Leo sing his Gary song?
Yes, it was fantastic.
It's problematic remembering my lines.
Yeah.
It wasn't your lines. You had the lines on a piece of paper.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was your cues that was
Yeah,
the
the cue
problem.
that came in at the wrong time, or didn't come in.
We didn't come in. We had to stop and start again. But
Yeah.
It was great atmosphere.
the audience liked it, and apparently it didn't matter. Right, that's the early pre-show bants out of the way. Better quality than usual, even though I say so myself. Let's crack on with the headlines. And first up, we have the Daily Mail. Here are the headlines here. And we have Andrew in £750,000 scam case mystery. Duke was paid huge sum by Turkish millionaires, claim High Court papers. Oh dear. We move on to the Telegraph. Duke took £1 million in the Telegraph, only 750 in the Mail. That's inflation for you. Duke took £1 million from Turkish fraudster, and also UK to boost Ukraine firepower with long-range artillery. On to the Independent, the Mariupol evacuation. Beltrue reports on hope for the besieged city. And we have 5 million households face budget squeeze. Dire warning over family incomes as energy price rise kicks in. We'll be covering that story, of course. On to The Guardian. Millions rush to minimise energy bills on eve of bleak Friday. And there's also time running out to get civilians out of Mariupol. On to the Financial Times. Biden orders record oil stockpile release in effort to quell fuel costs. Maybe if they printed less money, fuel prices might come down. Who knows? And meter readings crash energy websites as consumers panic ahead of price rise. We'll be covering that story. The Mirror has April Cruel Day, and energy bills up, council tax up, national insurance up, water bills up, stamps up, broadband charges up. And I would add to that, wages not up. Right. The Times is next, and it has Don't Back Down, Ukraine urged. And there's also a picture of a horse and a man having just fallen off it, looking like he's from a different era, but we hope he's OK. And there's also Oxford College silenced student who claimed she was raped. Oh dear. On to the Daily Express, which has managed to find some good news in all of this. House prices surge 33% in a year, £33,000 in a year, and they say inflation is only 8%. And that's obviously only good news if you happen to own a house. And finally, we have the Daily Star. Eggpocalypse now. And this is a story we shall be covering. The rising price of wheat and grain and not the rising price of what supermarkets are paying for eggs has led to a massive egg shortage, which threatens our biscuits and cakes. Oh dear. Those are the headlines. And we promised, I think back in November, that this was going to be a story that was going to be a huge theme of headliners over the next year. And it remains a huge theme. Everything gets a lot more expensive from tomorrow. 54% price rises in energy. That's just one of the price rises. And this is from Friday's Guardian, and pretty much everywhere, Miriam.
Yes.
Very expensive.
Yes, well, the world is getting very expensive, maybe to do with 2 years of no economy. I don't know. All that pasta I bought in 2020, it hasn't gone off. So I've still got 4 bags of fusilli and 26 cans of tomatoes, so that'll be getting me through. I'm not using my central heating. I'm going to be using tea lights and putting a colander on top.
Very, very practical housewife tip. Did you...
If there's any children watching, go and do it.
Have you both submitted your gas prices to your local energy council in order to avoid, not the council, the local energy provider, in order to avoid paying more tomorrow?
No idea how any of that works. I don't even know if I get...
Gas meter man?
I don't even know if I get a gas bill. I think we do. But yeah, I think it's...
This is the sort of flamboyant life when money no longer matters, when you're a ludicrously hard-working comedian.
We don't
on
have
GBNews
time.
every
All
day
these
of the week.
letters come through the door. Why can't we just get one letter with all the stuff that we owe just on it, and then I don't have to constantly... I don't know how... I'm supposed to be a semi-intelligent, capable person, and I can barely keep up with all the life admin. And now the life admin's getting more expensive. I don't know how everybody else manages. It's the amount of work that you've got to put in just to manage your life. You're not even getting paid for it. Then you've got to go and do a job as well.
And then you've got to pay taxes.
Then you've got to pay taxes. And now we're seeing soaring inflation with energy and also with food. Partly as a result of Ukraine, but also partly as a result of the government just printing money, as if printing money worked in Zimbabwe or worked in the Weimar Republic. And so now
875 billion they've printed in quantitative easing.
Yeah,
since 2000.
Yeah, and every pound they print steals money from people's savings. So it's the greatest
and
theft.
their salaries.
And their salaries. Well, salaries generally, then trend up with all the extra money.
But they haven't.
But they haven't, because that money ends up in fixed assets such as housing, which is fine if you've got a house. But I didn't buy a house because I thought, well, house prices have got to come down because they're ridiculously high. And I've been saying that for ages. It's like when's wokeism going to end? I'm like, it's ridiculous now. They're virtually hanging people off cranes, in a sort of Iranian regime. Wokeism's reached that sort of fever pitch, and it's still going up. I can't believe it. It's the same as house.
You don't get it. They just really care about people, okay?
Yeah, they care about people so much they've got to destroy them.
There's an economist from the Lebanon actually who argues that the more you print money, the more insane wokeism becomes. There's a correlation between the two.
Wow, go on. What's the link?
Well, it's because of wokeism being related to government getting involved, demanding government intervention on this, that, and the other. And the more they print, the more they're able to do that. So exactly.
It's not. I don't. Yep.
Saifedean Ammous, I think his name is. Anyway, so to Friday's Express for our next story. Putin will cut off gas supplies to Europe from tomorrow unless buyers settle in Russian rubles, Leo.
Yeah, so Putin is very angry at all the sanctions that have been levied against him by Western nations as a result of his ridiculous invasion of Ukraine. I almost feel sorry for Putin now. I mean, 6 weeks ago, he was seen as, all right, he was a dictator, but he was a strong man. He was good at judo, militarily. He might not be so good on the LGBTQ issues, but militarily, oh my God, what might. What technological and majestic might the Russian army had. And what turns out to be a Potemkin army that looked good in parades, couldn't even invade Wales. So he's gone into Ukraine, completely humiliated himself, got stuck in some mud, metaphorical and literal, and just having his bottom spanked by Ukraine's brave soldiers. And now, as a result of the sanctions that have been levied against him, he's trying to hit back. This is to prop up the ruble. The ruble collapsed against the dollar, so the Russian currency collapsed. So to prop it up, he's saying now you have to pay for the gas in rubles. And I mean, this is because for all that the West says, oh, Vladimir, you've got to stop, we're going to put all these sanctions against you. Germany is still spending it's sending Russia over $800 million a day to pay for the oil and gas. $800 million a day to pay for oil and gas.
Given that Russia had so many of its US dollars seized or frozen, I think it was something like 400 billion or something ridiculous, you can't blame him for demanding rubles. And if you have to own rubles in order to buy his natural gas, then that pushes up the ruble price. So I guess tactically he should have done that years ago. He didn't need to invade Ukraine to do it. Do you have any thoughts on this, Miriam?
Hot air, I don't know.
Hot air, okay. Well, that's what we like, honesty, if nothing else, and it enables us to crack on with the next story. The Guardian is next, and a study by the think tank Centre for Progressive Policy is, I suggest, Miriam, belittling the role of motherhood. How about that?
Mama. Yes. So The Guardian is saying that almost half of working-age women in the UK do 45 hours of unpaid care a week, which is worth £382 billion. So we're changing nappies and we're we're
Yeah.
wiping soup off our children's mouths, and we're picking them up and putting them in pushchairs, and we do this for hours and hours every day, and no one even says thank you, nothing. Invisible heroes.
It doesn't
Well,
sound that
call
hard.
me-
I mean,
Leo Kurtz.
It is
there's no
actually quite
spreadsheets
easy.
involved. Like that sounds
I mean,
way easier than paying my gas bill. To, like create a bank account, write a letter. Oh God.
I don't know. For me, this is they're framing it as it's disproportionately impacting women and exacerbating workplace inequality. So this is the idea that they want half the workforce to be women, and basically when a woman has a child, I mean, sometimes we actually want to look after our children. Just kind of happens.
Yeah, well, that's why...
Sometimes we're like, actually, I kind of like this little person that I've made, and I want to spend quite a lot of time with them, and it doesn't really bother me.
That's why I sort of frame the argument like that, because them framing it as unpaid care...
No, this is all,
It sort of belittles the whole role of motherhood,
not
which is, call me old-fashioned, but I would say it's kind of the most important role there is.
Yeah.
Apart from fatherhood.
Yeah. I wouldn't have known that until I had children myself. But yes, it is an incredibly important role, and
it does. When you have kids, it transforms your view of things, doesn't it?
Completely, yes.
And did it affect your employment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but it's not. You know, if your main motivation when you get up in the morning is money and power and climbing the career ladder, fine, but it's not mine anymore.
It's mine and Dominic.
Yeah, I'll say.
Well, I have two children. I mean, as a carer, I do think... I mean, my eldest son is disabled, so, you know, you do need a lot more help. And I am a carer and a mum. But having said that, I don't think that we should be kind of so dismissive of care, as if it's something that we don't enjoy doing. I do enjoy it.
Yeah, and enjoy
It's
it
hard,
and feel
but I enjoy it.
Human compulsion to do. The Metro is next, and as if things couldn't get any worse for Russian soldiers, they have, Leo.
Yeah, so this is the Russian troops that are withdrawing from Chernobyl. It's one of the areas in the north of the Ukraine where the Russian troops are being pulled out so they can focus on easier places to conquer.
Like Wales.
So Chernobyl, of course, had the nuclear power disaster in 1986, I think it was. So they had a complete meltdown, and the large areas contaminated. There's still a lot of contamination in the area. So when the troops went in, they, I mean, it's kind of fun. The Moscow's forces. I mean, not that radiation poisoning is ever funny, but if there was a time it was funny, it's this. So Moscow's forces occupied the Chernobyl site in the first days of the invasion, and for a time they prevented staff that were maintaining the facilities there and stopping the radiation from getting out. They stopped them from going in there. And so while they were there, and staff at the site actually described the invading troops as being on a suicide mission because they had no anti-radiation equipment, their vehicles, their clothes weren't anti-radiation. So they're just there, the radiation levels rise with no staff to keep them down, and now they're irradiated and they're being sent back to Russia where they'll probably hug people.
So what, they just walked into a forest, they saw the nuclear power station, they're like, what's that?
It's almost as if nobody
it's
really...
like that.
It's almost as if nobody thought this through.
I mean, it is the most famous nuclear disaster that the world has ever known. You would think that one of these guys with all these military accolades, when they put the map out, they're like, well, you know, that place...
Yeah, they're just...
It's
at
not
least
just any woods.
There should be a Hazchem sign outside it or something.
Yeah.
Right, so to the eye for our next story on conversion therapy. I'm not even entirely sure I understand what conversion therapy is, but if ever, before we go to this story, if ever an editor needed a kick up the backside, it is whoever edited this story. And it has, the eye understands the Equalities Office were blindsided by the change in tact. That's what the subheader says. Change in tact. That it was a change in tack, as in the direction when you sail. Tact is when you deal sensitively with delicate issues. So this thing has said the Equalities Minister, it wasn't blindsided by the change in the way a sensitive issue was dealt with. Do you understand? They've just used totally the wrong word.
Yeah, it's almost as if they write for The Guardian instead of The Eye. So, basically the government's backtracked on its long-promised policy to introduce a law banning conversion therapy. So Boris Johnson and Theresa May had promised to outlaw outlaw the practice, but Downing Street has now decided not to, and to explore non-legislative measures. So conversion therapy is things like chemical castration, hypnotism, lobotomies. In the past, terrible things happened, like electric shock treatment to try and convert people from gay to straight, which never worked and caused immense pain and distress. So I mean, it would seem to be a good thing to ban, but it doesn't really happen. It's not much of a problem anymore. It's like banning the dunking stool. For witches in the town square. It's not, it's not something we're a few decades away. We're a few decades away from doing it.
I get it. So this is just to fuel the victimhood. I get it.
Well, and also the way this policy was worded, it would also stop and potentially leave them open to prosecution, stop doctors exploring options other than gender reassignment with hormones and surgery and puberty blockers for children that present with gender dysphoria. And obviously, if you've got children presenting with gender dysphoria, it's better if you can explore all options, as well as the one that is mandated by The Guardian. So, this is, it's more complicated than it looks. So, although banning conversion therapy seems like a good idea, perhaps this bill needs to be reworded and, contain more protection for children.
OK. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Miriam, or can we plough on?
I still don't understand what conversion therapy is, I'll be totally honest with you.
Oh, he explained it beautifully.
I sort of understand. It's basically an archaic thing.
They used to do all kinds of...
It may be very... Is it used at all? Or is, I mean...
Well, and the other thing is some people voluntarily want to, convert. So I think Milo Yiannopoulos, is that?
Oh, yeah.
So he converted. So some people, want to go to their, religious pray the gate away things and stuff. So this would sort of impinge on their freedom to do that. But certainly, even that, obviously there's a lot of social pressures in certain societies and in certain cultures to not be gay. So I mean, it would be a good idea to ban some of it, even just as a statement to people to say,
I've gotcha.
Homosexuality is accepted.
OK, right, let's take a look at a story from The Times. And Miriam, how is Labour to rule us when it cannot agree on what a woman is?
Well, this is really interesting. So, Labour friction on trans issues continues as they basically said, biology now, this week, biology matters. So, Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, said it was important that same-sex places were available for people, and Labour's transgender rights debate continued with the front bencher saying biology does matter after Keir Starmer had this very awkward interview where he was asked whether a woman could have a penis. And there was a pause and he went, I don't think I want the conversation to go that way. It doesn't help anybody. So this is the latest groundbreaking news that biology exists, that women have certain character traits that men don't, and that men have certain character traits that women don't. I just thought that was fact.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd describe a penis as a character trait.
I suppose what this really is a...
It is in some cases.
The confusion here is the line between emotion and physical reality. So what you perceive or feel to be true and what is there.
Yeah.
That's really, if we're going a little bit deeper, why this is so confusing.
The world has got its knickers in a twist. Were you about to add something there, Leo, of great insight and depth?
Not particularly, no. No, I was just going to say it's hilarious watching left-wing politicians trying. It's happened quite a few in the past weeks. There's the Supreme Court appointee in America who was also asked, this question, can you define a woman? And she just couldn't. She's like, I'm not a biologist.
And then I've heard the argument that women don't exist. This was a few weeks back, that we're people with the cervix or something.
Yeah.
And I said to you...
Assigned female at birth.
But then if you're transitioning from a man to what? If a woman doesn't exist, then what is it anymmer?
Yeah, my wife, so she's pregnant, and at the hospital they described her as a birthing person or something. And it just made her feel, because she's a woman.
Yeah,
it just made her feel bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they have to make people feel bad.
But they make people feel bad by using language that sounds like they're caring.
Yeah, it's just...
A bit like lockdown.
It's
It's like, oh, I really care about you. Now get in your house, don't come out, put your children in a black mask that looks like some kind of satanic ritual, and, you know, wait for permission until you can breathe again. I mean, but it's because I care.
Yeah.
We have reached the end of part one. Quiet, you two. As is traditional, part two is next. In the meantime, lots of advertisers are going to shill you stuff. Consider their offers. You never know. They might be quite good. We'll see you in a moment.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Dominic Frisby. With me tonight, reviewing Friday's papers, we have Miriam Elliott and Leo Kearse, 2 radical, contrarian intellectuals. And the Times reports that Iranian women football fans got pepper sprayed by their own police. What for, Miriam?
Well, the heinous crime of women in Iran trying to attend a football match. So around 2,000 women and girls were barred from this match in Mashhad, despite the regime actually permitting it. And they turned on these women and pepper sprayed them.
So how can the regime have permitted it and then the police...
Well...
Sounds like there's inconsistency in government.
I think they were just saying, don't listen to them. Women can't come to a football match. They've lost their mind. Whatever next. So, yeah, I mean, it's terrible, really, in these countries. Women are treated like less than dogs. They are routinely humiliated. I have Iranian friends that have gone through some terrible things. And, yeah, to me, that's, you know, the real patriarchy.
Deep thought.
Well, I mean... You've got to see it from their point of view. I mean, if you let women into the football stadium to watch it, next thing you know, they're going to want to play it. And we all know how disastrous that is. So, you know, I know also, you know, they make a good point. They had to pepper spray the women because if they got into the stadium, they might have got hurt.
But on a good note, the authorities did apologise eventually.
That's nice.
So, you know, they were like, yeah, sure, let them in, but
they've got a soft
they have to be
side.
in a cage at the back.
Yeah, dancing.
Right, to The Guardian next. And Leo, tell us what the Western Isles are and how are they enlightened?
Oh, my God. Well, if you thought that last story was misogynistic, wait until you hear what's happened in the Outer Hebrides. So equalities campaigners are dismayed that only 8 women are standing for election to I'm Scottish, but I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. It's all in like weird Scottish writing. It's the Western Isles Council. Despite a campaign to diversify Scotland's only all-male local authority, so only 8 women came forward for election, competing with 42 male candidates. But I mean, to be honest, if you're going to live in the Outer Hebrides, you might not be the fifth wave intersectional feminist that these equalities campaigners are looking for. And also, if they're really worried about misogyny and the bad treatment of women, why don't they direct it at the women getting pepper sprayed trying to go and watch football in Iran? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're strangely silent about that.
Yeah, nobody's pepper spraying these women to stop them standing. They just can't be bothered because it looks boring.
I mean, the intellectual black spot is just so vast. It's like,
I've never understood it, but I don't think I ever will. Right, The Times is next, and Miriam, million is the code word.
Million!
Code word for what?
So Russians who want to surrender to Ukraine because they just can't be bothered anymore. You know, they've been in Chernobyl, they've come out in blisters, I don't know. They put their arms in the air and they go, million, and that means that, you know, I surrender, basically. But, you know, the Ukrainians are actually quite cool. They are offering them £44,000 or 5 million Russian rubles for defecting to the Ukraine.
Ooh, I might invade Ukraine. This is, my holiday will pay for itself.
Pay for your gas bill.
44 grand, I'm pretty sure 44 grand would buy you a house in the Ukraine.
Probably.
So maybe they just call their relatives in Russia and go, look, honey, let's start a new life.
They're bribing them 44 grand.
Great.
They're coming over to the other side. A lot of the Russians are now fighting for Ukraine. I mean, you know, this is what we're told. Who knows what to believe?
Yeah.
Good tactics.
Well, there's propaganda on both sides, but I mean, it's clear that a lot of the Russians don't want to be there, don't want to be fighting. They were told they were going on a military operation. All of a sudden, they go into Ukraine and they're like being told to, you know, they've got women who look like their grandmas shouting at them and telling them, you know, what are you doing here? They don't want to be, you know, shooting up women who look like their mothers.
Yeah, I mean, they're all the same people, aren't they?
Yeah. There's a lot of links between that country, and it's going to, you know, it's obviously going to cause an, you know, irreversible rift between the countries. But I can understand why a lot of Russians wouldn't want to. They know they're Putin's. It's Putin's blood money. It's Putin who wants this. It's not Russia. It's not Russian people.
Yeah, I agree.
Hopefully, this is going to bring down Putin.
Staying with Friday's Times, and Leo, how soft is Scotland getting?
Well, you won't believe this. They're not going to send children to jail anymore. I didn't know this was a policy in Scotland. I think maybe because I was like 6'2" when I was 8 years old, I avoided being sent to jail as a child. But no, it's not just any children. It's children who commit criminal offences. But they'll no longer be sent to young offender institutions in this reform. So they're going to end custody for 16 and 17-year-olds in favour of care-based alternatives. So it'll shift the approach from one of punishment to one of love and support, which kind of makes sense. You don't really want to, you know, send children into jail where they can get beaten up and, you know, have a horrible time. And some of them self-harm.
It's not jail, though, is it? It's young offender institutions. It's Borstal, presumably.
Yeah, Borstal, which is jail for kids.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's like when they had S Club Juniors. It's the same thing, but for children.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not convinced about how well care would work. I mean, you know, different individuals require different forms of treatment, don't they? Some people do need care and others need a slap them up the backside. Some people need corporal punishment.
Absolutely. Or a giant teddy bear giving them corporal punishment.
Tell me more about this.
I love you. I'm doing it again. Yeah, well, you know, it could work. I'm open to new ideas, but I tend to think that kids do need some discipline. But I don't think that it should be violent or, I
mean, Super Nanny just puts them on the naughty step.
I put my kids on the naughty step. I don't put them to jail. I don't know. At least they don't have workhouses anymore.
The Telegraph is next, and we've all lied on our CVs, but a bloke has just gone to jail for it. Miriam.
Yes, so Craig Butfoy? Yeah, from Kent. Butfoy? And false details.
Might be Bouffoy.
Bouffoy?
Rather than Butfoy. It's really French.
Hyacinth
Bouffoy.
He lied about getting a job on British Airways. He basically lied about his flying experience. This was in 2016. He made false claims saying that he'd flown all over the place and he was a brilliant pilot. I think he just watched that film, Catch Me If You Can. There's a high likelihood that he'd seen that and thought, I could do that.
Yeah.
But it was slightly less glamorous ending. He ends up in prison.
Yeah, I'd sort of give British Airways quite a lot of credit for this because you look at how safe planes are, and, you know, because when a plane crashes, it's obviously bad news. And but on the whole, I think flying is the safest form of transport there is.
Yeah.
You're less likely to die on a plane than in any other transport. It's one of those stats that does the round.
Especially if you don't get on a plane.
Well,
but I mean, I've never seen, you know.
I think you've misrepresented my my fact there. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, I've never seen a milk float reverse, you know, fly into a mountain at 400 miles an hour.
No, but there are milk float accidents.
Yeah, people die of milk. Using
I agree. Okay, maybe
there's no point crying over.
Maybe if we keep milk floats as the safest form of transport out of this, maybe that wasn't in the fact.
I think you could probably blag a job as a milk float driver, but you shouldn't really.
Yeah,
that's
as a
the
milkman.
one
I've
thing.
been on a golf buggy.
I mean, I could be on Faking It. You remember that Faking It, you know, and pretend to be a number of things, you know, an art dealer, whatever. No one's going to die if they get it wrong.
This is the thing. If he'd gone for a job at Virgin, because Richard Branson famously said, if you're offered a job and you don't know how to do it, accept the job and then learn on the job. So Richard Branson would have been fine with this.
I'm not sure he would have been, but I think it's to British Airways.
Don't learn on the job.
I still think it's to British Airways' credit that they've gone for this guy and trying to have him prosecuted because it's an important example. Anyway, we're going to take a break and then it's part 3, the best bit, when we do all the weird stories. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss, and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Dominic Frisby. With me tonight are Miriam Elliott and Leo Kearse. And we plough straight on. We go to Friday's Mail. And I thought the Chinese did whatever they were told by their government, but it seems they will stand up to them when it comes to exterminating their pets.
Yeah, they'll follow any ideology as long as you don't touch their hamsters. So Chinese authorities they've been forced to axe a plan to kill all pets belonging to COVID-19 patients in a virus hotspot following an outcry from residents. So Langfang city officials ordered the complete culling of indoor animals. So that's including cats and hamsters and probably goldfish as well.
What were they thinking?
So hamsters, as we saw in Hong Kong, they did this recently in Hong Kong, hamsters can carry COVID. And I think most animals can catch COVID and then, become vectors of the disease. But it seems pointless because hamsters, animals are normally confined to a cage. So they don't travel.
Surely they could have just vaccinated them.
Has there been a hamster vaccine developed?
Just quarantine them, right?
I think Pfizer took their eye off the ball there.
And they stood up to it. So good for the Chinese, I suppose. It's good. I mean, it's encouraging that they can hold their leaders to account to a degree. It's not something I thought they did.
Stood up to the leaders, and also, it sort of shows that Beijing's got this aggressive zero COVID policy, which is kind of pointless when Omicron is what's going around because it's not so damaging. It's not as deadly. So, maybe it's time to, get rid of COVID zero and just...
Anything zero is ridiculous.
Yeah, Coke zero.
Except for Coke zero. Yeah.
And so to The Independent, and titchy Rishi Sunak sees himself as the Conservative Party's answer to Will Smith, but without the slaps, Miriam.
Yes, so he's compared his... I'll tell you. Rishi Sunak has compared the upsetting attacks on his wife to the Will Smith Oscar saga, but he said, well, at least I didn't resort to violence because I'm better than that.
But he didn't say who he would have slapped.
Well, I mean, exactly. You can't slap
Boris.
Twitter, can you? Rishi said that, so basically there was a big scandal against his wife because she's got investments in a company in Russia, and they said, oh, she's profiting from this, that and the other. On reflection, he said, both Will Smith and I, we didn't slap anyone, so he didn't slap anyone. I don't know. It's all a bit...
Yeah, people seem to have a legitimate reason to criticise Rishi Sunak's wife. She's got investments in Infosys, which is still operating, despite so many companies pulling out of Russia. Infosys is still operating in Russia and generating money for Putin to buy bullets to put into the heads of Ukrainian civilians. So, yeah, that's something you can criticise someone for. And if he tries to slap me, good luck reaching my face. You're like 5'6".
He's pretty tall,
I think his stock is falling a little bit. Rishi Sunak.
OK, well...
This cost of living crisis is going to hurt him badly.
Yeah.
So the Telegraph, I mean, because we've talked about what's going to happen, but from tomorrow we actually feel it. Anyway, the Telegraph and the new boss of Ofcom, Michael Grade, is apparently sort of pro-anti-woke, if that makes sense. Does this mean Headliners is going to be unshackled?
Yeah, we're going to be simulcast on all the BBC channels. But yeah, Michael Grade, he's taken the reins at Ofcom, who regulate broadcast television in the UK, and he says that anti-woke campaigners are an important part of thoughtful and lively debate. Do you hear that, Victoria Corrin? He's a Conservative peer, and he said that describing the BBC licence fee as regressive was not an opinion but a statement of fact, and that he admired the actor-turned-woke critic Lawrence Fox for his courage in speaking out against woke issues. So it's refreshing to see that, coming from somebody in a substantial position of certainly with influence over the debate.
I mean, the question is it hot air?
Well, Ofcom said their decisions are based on evidence and research as opposed to feelings, which is good. I think we should retain that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything just descends into a big emotional...
The problem is, when Ofcom has the regulatory power, they then get lobbied by nut jobs or ideological opponents to do this, that and the other. And so the individual at Ofcom comes under so much pressure from what it turns out is like 1/10 of 1%
I think we just need to start saying no.
Yeah, well...
And also you've got people like Tim Davie who comes in and says, "Oh yeah, no, we're gonna make sure right-wing voices and alternative anti-woke voices are represented on the BBC." But he just says that to placate people, and then it doesn't actually happen.
Yeah, absolutely. They haven't phoned me up.
No, they are.
Right, on to Friday's Guardian, and it reports that egg farmers are under pressure. Miriam, what's all this about?
Well, it's a bit like the milk story a couple of a week ago. Egg producers are facing massive financial collapse because of everything that's been happening, the tidal wave of increased costs to keep making eggs. British free-range poultry farmers are calling on big retailers to increase the price of eggs by 40p to try and sustain the industry. So, you know, it's in a scramble. I don't know.
A dozen, I think.
Yeah, a dozen. So the question is, you know, is it worth saving? For me, I'm a big egg fan. I have 2 eggs a day. Always have done, always will.
Would you consider
I'll do anything to save those 2 eggs I have for breakfast.
Would you consider getting a chicken?
Well, in a 2-bedroom flat, I don't know.
Well, that's hard. I used to keep chickens in London, but unfortunately a fox got them.
Oh, no.
But yeah, but the problem is because you get one of those egg glue things and you keep them in the cage.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh, I'll let them out. And it's really nice for a couple of days. They wander around your garden and they come in the kitchen and it's sort of, you feel like you're in the country or whatever. It feels all nice.
Yeah.
But the foxes are so rampant now in London. They're out in the day and they just get them. So you've got to keep them in the cage.
Can we eat foxes instead of eggs?
Unfortunately, they're not good. They're not good eaters. Foxes. They're too muscly and wiry. But I mean, it's egg input costs. What amazes me about this story is that it's the supermarkets are suppressing the price of eggs for their own reasons because they've got their markups and they want to keep their customers happy, and they seem to control the price. You know, the egg farmers can't. Egg farmers. Egg farmers, I suppose.
Egg farmers, yeah. It doesn't sound right, does it?
No, it doesn't.
They can't. They just can't make the omelette.
Yeah, but I mean, their costs are up 40-50% because of the rising cost of grain and so on. It's difficult.
I think they need to be helped, actually. I think it's an important industry.
Let the market sort itself out.
Yeah, but if they're acting monopolistically...
Well, absolutely. Well, talking of monopolies, on to our next story. And Friday's Times says the Edinburgh International Festival, which has had its snout in the trough for 75 years, wants even more subsidy. Fringe artists get none, however. They never have, and they are the reason the Edinburgh Festival is good.
Yeah, nobody goes to the Edinburgh Festival to see some ballet. You know what I mean? They go to see, like, ridiculous comedy shows. But, so the Edinburgh International Festival is facing a huge deterioration without more public funding. Its outgoing director has warned while holding their hands out. So the festival suffered a 10% cut in council subsidy in 2019, and government funding has stood still since 2009 with funding of about £5.1 million a year. But why? Why is public money being given to the Edinburgh International Festival is stuff like ballet and opera. So these are the follies of the rich and the powerful. So why are cleaners and bus drivers being taxed to pay for these rich people's hobbies? That's ridiculous. We should put a tax on Fabergé eggs to pay for Roy Chubby Brown to perform. That's the way it should be.
Do you know the story of how the Edinburgh Festival started?
Was it a bunch of English ponces?
There was an English ponce involved. It was actually mainly an Austrian ponce was the key figure.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, because it's a great story, and I've made a whole documentary about this, which is available on YouTube. Father of the Fringe. So it's 1947, World War II's just ended, and this Austrian impresario, Jewish guy who's fled the Nazis, has got this idea that he's going to put on a festival to bring, I think it's like the most highbrow arts in the world, and he gets 10 grand in subsidy and 10 grand from his mate, Lord Rosebery. And he puts on this Edinburgh International Festival, and it's got like Sadler's Wells Ballet, Glyndebourne Opera, Halle Orchestra, Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra, all your acts you've just listed. And there's 8 local theatre groups, a couple of like Marxist theatre groups in Scotland and a guy who does puppets and all the rest of it. And they said, can we come and appear at your festival? And Rudolph Bing said, no, you're not good enough. We're doing the highbrow stuff. So these guys went and did their shows anyway, and they were known as the Uninvited 8. And that is what eventually would become the Fringe. They went there, they had a good time, they made money. So the following year, 9 of them came. 12.5% increase on the previous year. And every year, in its entire history, it's grown. From 8 uninvited people, and by the early 1970s, the Fringe was bigger than the main festival. And it all happened with no subsidy, no government intervention. And the Edinburgh International Fest. And the beautiful thing about the Fringe is it's like YouTube. You know, anyone can go, anyone can put stuff on, Nobody knows that, cat videos are going to take off or whatever it is. Nobody's going to commission cat videos, but it happened quite organically. And whereas the international festivals like the BBC or something, or even GBNews, in that there's a curator who is commissioning stuff and putting it on and deciding what you watch. And one is totally free market and the other isn't.
Yeah.
And the free market one is way more interesting.
Yeah, the market always knows. And if something's not making money, that's a signal that nobody wants it.
And no one wants it. And it's an institution dictating what you should think.
Absolutely. Right. I'm glad we have finally put that right on national television. Father of the Fringe is the name of the documentary. You should all watch it. Now, Friday's Guardian, Arundel. Not something out of Lord of the Rings, but a star 13 billion years away. Miriam.
Yes, a distant star has been found through a telescope, not like that.
The Hubble telescope.
The Hubble telescope. The light has come from Arundel, and it has travelled an estimated 12.9 billion years to reach Earth. So far away, and still it shines brighter than all those stars at the Oscars this week. It's
good comparison.
It is, fading. So yes, it's travelled 12.9 billion years to reach here. It says here we almost didn't believe it at first. It was so much further than the previous most distant stars, says Brian Welsh, an astronomer, PhD student at the Johns Hopkins University.
And nerd.
And nerd. The report's just in The Guardian, full of people, scientists, astrophysicists, kind of waxing lyrical over this amazing star, which is an amazing discovery. Yeah. It's great.
It's fantastic. Can you imagine that? 13 billion years. It's just such an extraordinary...
Reminds me when I lived on the Metropolitan line.
Right, on we go. Friday's Mail says both horses and guide dogs are spooked by LGBT rainbow crossings. I'm looking forward to hearing Leo Kerson's take on this.
So, as you might have noticed, especially if you read the Daily Mail, a lot of town councils have been painting rainbow crossings on their streets instead of the traditional zebra crossings to show people that, we can paint rainbows all over the place. It's very important. But the Metropolitan Police have been forced to teach their horses how to go over these rainbow crossings because they spook the animals. So, and this presents quite a risk to health and safety. You can get thrown off a horse, and also, really sadly, this really got me. Guide dogs suffer panic attacks and avoid the crossings when they try and navigate them, according to research. So, that's really kind of sad, and also, dangerous and exclusionary to people with disabilities, people who can't see. Yeah. So, this is another example of woke people trying to do something to be, to show that they're good, and they want to, show solidarity with people, and doing something that actually causes harm and excludes people.
Yeah, I think horses and dogs see in black and white, don't they? They don't see in colour.
I don't know. I think the horses need to go on diversity training. I think they're the problem here.
OK.
And I think, on a more practical level, just paint it on a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's biology getting in the way of good intentions once again, isn't it?
Oh, that damn biology.
Yeah. Yeah, there was loads of videos on Twitter and else, presumably on Facebook as well, of animals visibly, particularly police horses, being visibly confused and refusing to go over There was a whole spate of them being shared on Twitter.
So homophobic. Yeah.
These horses are so...
Turn them into glue. Put them in a Tesco lasagna.
Right, Friday's Mail is talking about Doomsday Anxiety. What is Doomsday Anxiety?
So, Doomsday Anxiety, for some bizarre reason that I just don't understand, there's this huge spike in people who are really anxious and fear-driven, and that they just spend all day on their phone doing this, reading about what they might perceive as to be the end of the world. I just can't think why that's happened. I really... 1 minute we're all happy and smiling and walking around, and now this. So, according to the Daily Mail, people get addicted to scrolling on their phones all the time. and reading stories about, first world, COVID for 2 years. Oh, we're going to die of COVID. And then, nuclear war. Oh, we're going to die of nuclear war. And there'll be something else next. And so there's an 83% surge in people calling in to these London clinics saying, I can't function anymore because I'm just too scared to leave the house. So they're giving them all this advice. There's a sort of, it's called the STOP technique.
Yeah, I love this.
S-T-O-P. STOP stands for S, stop. T, take a breath. O, observe your body, your thoughts, your emotions and your feelings. And P, put it into action. So it's about re-navigating.
That just sounds like see it, say it, sort it.
Doesn't. I mean, I think people love being scared.
Yeah.
I've really thought about this.
Yeah.
We go on roller coasters specifically to engage in the feeling of almost dying because we get a hit of serotonin from that. And I think living like that is actually almost akin to...
But I like the bit at the end of the roller coaster where you're definitely not dead. I still wake up. I wake my wife up at like 1:30 in the morning. And I'm explaining nuclear annihilation to her because we're in a flat. We don't have a basement. I want to move out to the countryside, get a basement, get like 70 centimetres of concrete between me and any fallout.
I think I often think about that, and I think I'm probably better off dying if it actually happens.
Have you ever seen that film Threads? Oh,
yeah.
my God.
Yeah, and When the Wind
Man
Blows.
that wet himself.
Oh,
in
yeah. I
Sainsbury's.
love that film.
But yeah,
I used to lie and sleep in terror about that.
We've got thousands of
when
warheads.
I was a little boy in the 70s and 80s, it was nuclear war was a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
My mum
And
went and
we've
read-
still got thousands of warheads pointing at each other. On, you know how badly organised and incapable people are. Surely one of them at some point is going to fire off.
Yeah, one of them's senile and the other one's power crazy maniac. What could possibly go wrong? Right, finally to the Telegraph, Leo, and the first list of approved cannabis-derived products are finally on sale.
Yes, so the Food Standards Agency has officially approved, you could buy them anyway, but has officially approved 3,500 sweets, oils and drinks. So it's moving to regulate the cannabis industry, I guess, because different levels of CBD can have different effects. So it's, it does have a psychoactive effect, but there's no psychedelic effect. So the THC that causes in large quantities, hallucinations and, smaller quantities.
The reason why you take it.
I prefer the CBD side of things. It's mellow, and I don't like. Everybody breeds the cannabis now to be super strong, which is bad for people. It gives paranoia.
Yeah.
Right, on that note, that is all we have time for. Thank you very much to my guests, Leo Kearse and Miriam Elia. Headliners will be back at the same time tomorrow with Mark Dolan hosting, the very tall Mark Dolan. And until then, from all of us here at Headliners, have a very nice evening or a nice morning. Cheerio.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GBNews.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering.
As their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999,